Welcome, everyone. I'll reintroduce myself again for the people that were not in the previous session. My name is Arisca Droog. I work for Schiphol Amsterdam Airport. My colleague Maya is also joining online, so if there's any questions at the end on a technical level, then she can definitely help me. She's on the same team as I am. We're both working for asset management for Schiphol Airport, where we are responsible for our data model throughout the entire asset lifecycle. So today, the previous session, we kind of discussed high over why we are part of the airport room, why it's important to focus on open standards. This session is focused on some use cases. So we want to explain to you guys how Amsterdam Airport uses open standards, how Vienna Airport uses it, and then NACO as a design party is using the open standards based on the client perspective as well. So I will start information management at Schiphol Airport. Can we make the presenter mode so it has the notes on the side?
Yeah.
Right click.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
It's okay. The information management at Schiphol. So just kind of,
Sorry,
it's okay. You can just go back to the slides.
What's this one?
I think if you, yes, this one. We kind of made a shift in information management at Schiphol Airport. So just kind of high over how we are looking at information management is, the first one is that information is an asset. So we look as an airport at our assets as in the physical assets, like the walls and the roof and the floors and the doors and everything. But we also look at information as an asset because without information, we cannot be working data-driven. So that was a very important one for us to start using at Schiphol Airport. Information management and asset management are inseparable. So we need information management in order to do asset management and vice versa. We cannot do asset management without information management. So it's a lot of collaboration within the asset management department between the asset owners, the information managers like myself, and everyone involved that does something with information management and asset management within their job. The third one is the information needs to be accessible and available at all times. We have a lot of stakeholders involved, not just within Schiphol Airport itself, but also all of the parties doing work with and for us. That's why NACO is also here, because they're a very important stakeholder for us. And information management follows technological development. So we're really looking at what the market on a national level and on an international level, which is why I'm here, is doing, so we can use that within our own information management environment. We want to focus on open and continuous registration and exchange of information. So we really look at what the market is doing based on OpenBIM, but also linked data is a very important aspect of our environment. And then Schiphol determines the boundaries. So we as a client are responsible for setting those boundaries. What are our requirements based on the data requirements, but also on the airport requirements itself and how it all correlates together. And then last but not least, the information needs to be up to date, reliable, and complete. And I think that's the biggest challenge throughout the entire asset lifecycle to get up to this last bullet. So this is kind of just a FYI, because it makes Schiphol very unique. We have a main contract, it's called Main Contract 2019. So in 2019, we actually started a strategic collaboration and partnership with 3 main contractors. So what we did with this collaboration and partnership is that we have a long-term contract with Heijmans, BAM, and Volker Wessel. And they are responsible for the maintenance of all of our assets throughout for projects and for the maintenance phase. And that also includes information management. So the next slide, I'll show you a little bit how we are doing that. But the contract is performance-based. And it really encourages the collaboration between all of the parties involved. So that's a very different way of working, especially from an airport perspective. But that's what we've been working on for the last 3 years. It's a long-term contract, so it's for 9 years, and every 3 years we reevaluate how the contract party is performing, if they're doing their work like they're supposed to, and then they'll renew the contract, and that's for 9 years. So what we did with that contract is that instead of, from a client perspective, telling our contractors what to do and how to do it, we kind of separated it. And Schiphol is responsible for telling our contractors what they have to do, and we're leaving our contractors to use their own knowledge and strength of how they're going to do it. So we set the boundaries, and they are free to fill those boundaries just however they want, because we believe that they are the ones with all of the expertise, with their experience. So we should only be telling them what to do. And that also changes the them attitude to the us attitude. So it's more of a partnership. We have to work together in order to reach that goal. But that also means a shift in information and data management. And that's what I will be talking about in the next couple of slides. Like I said, my colleague Maya is here too. She's a big part of this change that we've been working on for the last couple of years. So this is the information management strategy that Schiphol designed, I think in about 2018, and this was supposed to be part of the 2019 main contract. So besides all of the changes in asset maintenance, there's also a change in the information management. And this is actually the biggest challenge for people working with data, because they were still used to working in their separate Excel files, in their own little software, and just doing their own thing. And this is a more open way of working. So in the next few slides, I'll actually go through the entire environment step by step. But just to kind of give you a high overview, we have the projects. So all of the projects are working in a data room. Katenda is not right here right now, but they were in the previous session. We have BIMsync as our data room. So the projects work in our data environment of BIMsync, and they are responsible for delivering the project handover information to our main contract parties that I just told you about. And they are responsible for processing all of the information, conform our data dictionary, so where we have all of our data requirements, and they will send them to us through a data interface, and they will then land in our central data environment. This is all based on linked data. So I'll go through it step by step. So I'm starting over with the data dictionary. So our data dictionary is the application that we use at Schiphol to publish our information requirements. So it's our asset information model. In our information model, we have a object decomposition. We define the properties that we want per object. We define the geometries. And besides that, we can also add definitions, terms, information products, so documents that projects need to deliver in different phases, and much more. That's really the strength of our data dictionary, is that we can really add anything we want. We also add pictures, for example. So if someone does not know what a wall is, then I'll add a picture of a wall to our data model, and they can find the wall in our data dictionary and see a picture of a wall. Maybe a bad example, but you get the idea. This model is really the base of how we exchange information throughout the entire life cycle. So not just with our main contractors, but also for projects. So for example, when we start a project and NACO is our design party, they have to meet the requirements based on what we have in our data dictionary. Because if they do not deliver the data conform our data dictionary, then our main contractor is unable to process it in their information landscape, and then they cannot send it to us. So it's crucial that everyone is following the data dictionary. Within our data model, we also have multiple mappings to and links to international and national standards, which I think is very important for the airport room here. We also have vocabularies and ontologies, all in the technical part in the back of our landscape. So some of the standards that we have in our data dictionary are IFC. In this case, it's still version 4.2. We have the NLSFB, which is a national standard, and we have the different vocabularies that we have in our data dictionary. So going from our data dictionary, we also have our project phase. And in our project phase, it's important to get the right information, like I just said, to our maintenance phase. And we do that through, it's called in Dutch an ILS and an IM protocol, an information management protocol. The ILS you can kind of translate to IDM, an information delivery model, I think, or manual. And that's actually where we describe all of our product and process requirements. And it's really the goal with this IDM and IM protocol is to align the project data with the maintenance organization. So I'm sure a lot of people know when a project is working and they do project handover, there's usually a gap in between the two organizations. It's like literally throwing it over the wall and be like, good luck with that. We are done with our part. Now it's maintenance, and then they can fix all of the issues that might come along with it. So with this data model, we're actually trying to kind of fill that gap by using our data dictionary, filling it with our IDM, or actually we're exporting it to an IDM so that the requirements are all the same. And then in the information management protocol is where we actually define all of our process requirements. So we're telling them based on the ISO 19650, step by step, what they need to deliver and when they need to deliver it. So by doing that, we're securing information needs for asset management, but also the project organization. So all of the different stakeholders within the project, so design, construction, and anyone else. But also other stakeholders like operations, because operation is a big stakeholder that will use the information again for their part of their job. Like I said, the information requirements are extracted from the data dictionary. So where we have our object-based information needs, it's literally an extract to the project phase. So it's a one-on-one way of working. So there should not be any gaps, except of course when you have different versions, because some projects take 4, 5, 6 years. So by the time they deliver, they might have been delivering based on an older version. And then they get to do a gap analysis of the different requirements. That's a whole process designed for it. So once the project delivers, they are responsible to sending it to our main contractor. And they can actually, during project handover, deny the delivery if it is not conform the ILS or the IDM and the IM protocol. That way, it goes back to the project and they have to fill in all of the information requirements that we originally asked. If the main contractor accepts the project handover, then they will process it in their system, which we do not tell them what systems to use because we only talk data. So we tell them they can use any application. We don't care, just make it work. And then they will be sending it over a data interface to Schiphol. So the data interface we call the ASB. It's an airport service bus, and it's based on IFC XML. The information exchange, it's literally the information exchange between the main contractor and Schiphol. And they are structured messages according to the model of the DDS. So that's what we were talking about here. The structure of those messages are again the same so that the main contractor can send it and we can process it in our environment, in our data environment. And at the same time, it also does validations. So if we have certain properties defined in our data dictionary with a certain data type, for example, we want to know the date, the year it was built, and we have defined it as a year in our data dictionary, but now they are sending it as an actual date, so with the month and the day, it will deny the message because it's not conform our data dictionary. So there's also a lot of validations that are done in this data exchange. Again, the standards that we have used to do this is the IFC standard, IFC for AD2, but important to mention because we're all here for open standards and we want to include our open standards as much as possible within our data information environment. And then we have our central data environment, or in Dutch, centrale datavoorziening, our CDV. And the central data environment is the main data repository where we store all of our instance data, again, based on our data dictionary. So that's a very important part because it actually completes the circle of data requirements, validating the data and storing the data and having a one source of truth. So before we had our central data environment, we were using the applications, which I will mention in a second, but that was our source of truth. And we would have our GIS application and our, for example, Maximo application. And in the Maximo application, they stored their assets on a higher level, so on like a cluster level, while in GIS, we have it on instance level. And so we could not connect the systems down here. And now with the central data environment, we're actually doing it object-oriented. So it will be stored as an object in our central data environment, and then it will deliver all of the asset data to the user applications, which is the last one, so that the end user will still be using the same applications that they've been using for the last couple of years, but it's all based on linked data when you look at this part. The dashboarding that we do is also based on, for now, still on the user applications, but in the future, we're actually working on it right now, is that we also want to do the dashboarding and the quality based on our central data environment. So what does that mean? This is really MC 2019, the main contract. The change in how we work is supposed to be optimizing asset management at Schiphol Airport, with really the goal of knowing where all of our assets are located, their status, and having a digital copy that we can rely on and is available at all times, which is it's just crucial for optimal asset management. And I think that is still a challenge, especially because it included a digital transformation and a data-driven approach. And like I said, that's kind of like hard for a lot of people that have been working for the airport for like 20, 30 years. And now I'm telling them to start working a different way. They do not all agree with me. They still try to work the way that they were working. But it really means it's a shift in how we work based on our on the changes that we're making. But it is supposed to lead to improving our information exchange and data structure, because we are working so structured. I'm including all of my stakeholders. What do you want to know as an asset owner? How do you want it? And then we are responsible for the technical parts and making sure it's in a certain data structure. And it really enables us to work with all of our different stakeholders on a higher level than what we did before. Gerard.
I'm one of the old persons. I started in, sorry, my voice is a bit rusty. But we had a very easy afternoon, so that's not the issue. No, but I started within NACO in '92, so at the time I was still black. And I started with a pencil. And eventually we worked on. I also worked in some projects abroad. And together with my colleague Mike of Santos Freitas, we at a certain point thought, this is it. This needs to be it. It was roughly, we had a discussion during lunch, during coffee break, roughly around 2010, 2011. We started thinking we should do it differently because we can't collaborate good enough. We are the perfect architects. We can do everything. We get designed all over the globe. But still, are we collaborating good enough? And we thought, no, it isn't. You see, well, we will show you two projects. This is the first one. This is called MKS, multimodal knot. This is the multimodality within the front of Schiphol, in Plaza. Maybe you will know it. And the other thing is that the more civil approach, civil project somewhere in the desert. But when I saw this, and I want to come back to what Arisca said, there are main contractors. They start about 9 years ago or a bit less, but it's all built on confidence that they will provide what they do. But you see a change. Confidence is not in the blue eyes. but you have to prove it. So when I started in '92, they say, yeah, NACO, BCN, they know everything. I'm now one of the head architects. They are good, but that's not good enough. We have to prove that we're good. So in the other presentation, we talked about flexibility within in building, but you also need flexibility in the processes. So we need to be flexible. So despite I'm a great person, I need to be flexible. I need to share the information and then celebrate. And that's the reason why I start with 2 slides and then hand over to people who really can do it. You are wondering, we have so much that we have to do. AR, all these kind of things, all the abbreviations, and a lot of people say, what is it? ISO 19650, all these kind of things. No, but this is where it's all about. This is, at the end, you need assets where you can do your operations in on a good, balanced way. So, and that we picked this project because we are very proud of it, me as well. When I started at a certain point, I had to do a cross-section from somewhere here to there. I combined it with all kind of paper drawings, AutoCAD drawings, and I scanned it, I put it all together. Now, and that's really fabulous, we can see and we can connect everything. So we can see and we have good decisions. We have based decisions on true facts, not on my belly, but it's on real things you can measure. So this is what they call the multimodal hub. It derives from a number of things. There you may know it. Plaza. I'm not allowed to touch it. Plaza. That is, and everyone says, Plaza. That's well designed. We did it, so yes, of course, but not really. There is a arrival curve or a curve, and by having that shape, we had a discussion with the management of Schiphol at that time. They say, can't we use that space? So the idea came from management from Schiphol. They said, can't we use it? And that is exactly what we need. We need to collaborate on all levels. So that's the first part of it. There's a train station underneath. Mike will show you in some elaborated nice drawings or pictures or sections or whatsoever. There's a train station underneath. There's a bus station. And there is somewhere here a arrival curb as well. So it's a big project. A lot of stakeholders, a lot of people involved, a lot of requirements involved. So we need to check it, everything. And we are also learning. I mean, we can say we are the best. No, we're not the best, but we are learning. That's good. You have to keep on learning, keep on have an open-minded, because we could design this on paper. But by designing these decisions, we can show to the client and they can say, yes, I do agree. So we have a different approach for that. Now I have to look. I always take the wrong one. So this is again a project. Plaza, the bus station, somewhere here, train station. So as an architect, this is really a challenge to bring this all together. All these multimodalities and all these stakeholders, all the political things around it is of course also involved. So you need to be sure on what you do. It's not only that you like to do it, it is, this morning we talked about religion. This is not a religion. This is a necessity. This is not nice to have. We have to do it like this. Because if we don't do it like this, connect everything, we can't give good designs, good decisions, which can linger for longer than only after this is built and then it will take on board. So this is, and you can hear, I'm always proud of these kind of projects. And I'm really proud of telling you that because these not only big, but it's also information-wise complex. And that's the thing we need. Mike will show you how we did all those, what Arisca said, how we get it into things like this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think I'm going to tell a bit about the information modeling and information management of this project. Quite complex. To start with our starting points. Our starting points, of course, are these projects you see, but also from a data side. The Arisca's team has created the IDM and information management protocol, which is our starting point for the information part of this project. But in this project, also Schiphol asked us also to handle the information flows between these several projects and several parties, and also the spatial coordination between these projects. So go to the next slide. Just to say, we went to a couple of project stages: concept design, schematic design, final design, construction documents, and these projects were almost in parallel, working in parallel. So here you see an image of we colored the several projects. So the green part was a project team, the blue part, the purple part was a project team, there's the plaza part. The blue part we call the bus part is also a whole project team, multidisciplinary. And then here below you see the train station, which is also a separate team, but also another asset owner, because that's ProRail, and the rest of the building part is from Schiphol. So here you see the design parties that were involved. Then the Cal and NACO, which did the architecture for bus, plaza, and this early works here. Meixner, which is the wayfinding, and then Arcadis, which was hired by ProRail to do the train station. And the interfaces between the train station, the stairs go up here, and here comes some new stairs. And between these projects is very narrow. So we had to really pay attention and create good workflows and good models to make this all possible.
I believe you also go the wrong way.
It's horrible.
I thought I always did. You do it.
So to start with that, we had to set up a common data environment, of course, and the client already had one, which is AConnect, which is now going to BIMsync. So it's a step forward, I think. But as they asked us to do the information workflow within these separate projects, but also between these separate projects, we set up a BIM 360 environment for the models, and we set up an A-site environment which handles the information within the project, but once it gets published, also between the projects, and also towards the common data environment of the client, which was quite complex. A part of this had to be done manually, because, for example, going from BIM 360 to A-site, or going from A-site to AConnect, we had a document controller and a document manager who really just downloaded and uploaded. We're hoping that the OpenCDE initiative from buildingSMART will help us in the future to automate it and connect these systems. But the other challenge we had is that, of course, there's a whole subterraneous part here. There's the part outside of the building. There's a part inside of the building. There's some models delivered by the client. We already had some models there. Point clouds been made to validate information. We have digital terrain models, which our NACO civil team creates based on information which is based upon a survey that has been made. We had site utility drawings, which is very important in this project because we're going to create openings here for the railway station. So this is a very populated area with all IT cable systems and all kind of site utilities. And of course, we had to do some additional traditional ductile station measurements out in trial trenches and combine all this information to update existing situation and make wise decisions on which is the truth, because sometimes it's contradictory. So once we've done that, we could really start the design part, start the modeling part, but also start complying with the EAR, the IDM the client made. And to ensure this all works throughout all the projects, we create one BIM execution plan for all the project and all the project stage. And all the stakeholders, you just all the designers and clients, you just see which kind of was a challenge, but I think we managed to do that. And on the on software we used, of course, because there's a buildings part, but there's also a civil part. We were using both Revit and Civil 3D, and as you might know, they don't work very well together at the moment. So IFC really helped us there. We used Solibri to combine all these models to do spatial coordination, but also to validate the data to ensure it goes into the data room. And we used BCF to manage issues, also an open standard. Maybe it's relevant to say the civil 3D models. At that time we started, there was no certified civil 3D export to IFC. So we hope that the new export Autodesk showed us will help us with that in the future. But even though we were able to export it, we were able to get it in the right place, and we were able to do spatial coordination and even add some data to the IFC models to make Arisca. Because there are some limitations still in OpenBIM, as in combining point clouds or combining 2D drawings, like the site utilities drawing we received. We also used kind of closed Navisworks to do visual checks and have a viewer online for the client. I think this kind of tells our story on how we handled this project. And the next project, Gerard will take over.
Maybe leave this one, because
yes.
what I want to emphasize again, I hear you can hear us talk about it loudly or not, but we are proud of this thing. So that means it is not data, just data. I think it's necessary to describe what you need. It is necessary to put all the standards in place, but still you have to believe in it. So I won't say it's a religion, but it's a way of thinking. And this brought us, and then when I see the large section, I always get a warm feeling, because that is what we can see. We can show what we do. We can show the interfaces between all the decisions, and that's perfect. And now something strange happens, and architects talking about sand. Because this is Schiphol, what we just saw was Schiphol. This is a project which I'm not entitled to show. So this is safe haven. I've heard that is what I heard yesterday. Safe haven. So you have seen it, you can think about it, and you even can make pictures, I see. But please do not refer to it. It is somewhere in the Middle East, and you will see at the end. But if you are clever enough, you'll see where it is. It's not an issue. It's at the moment built. It's not just architecture. Usually we talk about architecture because these are the fancy drawings and all these kind of things. So you also see the developments within our company, that the architects start with this because they also always want to do something new. They are, I don't know what it is. You get born with that kind of things. You want to do something new. Maybe it's a super ego thing. I'm not quite sure, but civil, they are also on the road to this standardization, and they are even getting us in. They are faster than us. There's always the discussion. I want to say that sustainability within our organization, that we have all kind of people thinking about sustainability in buildings, things like that. But the civil guys were much earlier with these kind of things, because all the concrete they reuse for years, and we all demolish buildings, start all over again. No, they already did it. So please. And we had a discussion during a coffee break about sight, your vision. Look good. Don't always keep a clear mind, an open mind. What's the possibilities? So this is it's a very large thing. Therefore, you see, this is the runway somewhere in the desert. There's nothing there, really nothing there. So it's a challenge to work there, I guess. I haven't been there. But therefore you need a number of things who are set. You have to make your the proposition quite right. So the client wanted to have all these kind of things. What's said here, a runway, it's a length, and there's a stance, and there is pavement, and there are lighting, all these kinds of things. Also, multiple disciplines in the sand, let's put it this way. But to emphasize this, to have a design with so many things, which even when you look a bit further into it, then you see that it's growing like, how do you say it, cauliflower? It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So think before you start. It's essential to think. And also prepare yourself. Know what you want to do. Call it names. Give it names, not call it names, because that's something different. Give it names. Use the good language, use the standardized language, and then talk about it. Be open and federated. So we got an AR. So the client said, "This is what I want to have." You see, even architects knows all the abbreviations at the end. That's something we started of. When this journey, we said at a certain point, all the people who are involved in these kind of projects starts with the ISO 9650 training, because then we have the same language. It is not only the language here talking this kind of halls. No, it is essential that you rethink the whole process. You can be great, but you need to be flexible in your thinking. So the AR, there are all kind of things. And then you see, we learn, because usually we had some little drawings and we design it, and then we draw it with our Civil 3D, and then we add some elements in it. This project, and these are colleagues of mine, they also said, we want something new. We want to bring in all these signage elements on the runway. It needs to be digitalized. Not that this is digitalized, no, the location, the number, what they require. So what these elements are all built there within a Excel sheet. That was imported to the model, and then it will brought all these other requirements on the center line of the airport, on the runway. They were positioned there. So that is, we're going ahead. So therefore, you can easily check it. You can see, does it comply to all the demands we have? So, and then you can have all the information. So what that was for us, change. So people from the architectural department assisted them of building these entities, these elements, and get the right information there. And this is always, and therefore I like this drawing as well. And then I see everyone frowning and say, "What I see, this is the wrong sheet." No, we're looking from the center of the earth upwards. So we are underground, because there's a lot of things there. We always forget, especially architects forget that, but I think you as well. But there is a lot underneath the surface. Yeah, the electricity, drainage, all kind of things, and they need to be there. It's also an asset. It's also something which you have to see and use and get it on the right place. So this is a fun story. So, and then you see the how information starts to be real. So this was the first one. It was a collaborating model in Navisworks. Then we have the InfraWorks. We could show it what was there, and you can see it starts to be a little bit of sandy. And this is when they built it somewhere in January. So, and that's always make me proud. That then you have information where it's nothing, and then you can bring it to a higher level, and at the end it is there. And it is, and we knew how it could there. We can check it. So it is. There you see even the platform is done. There you see at the moment the runway. That's, I think they are almost ready at the moment. So this is a very fast track. So we always have to learn to work with construction companies, because the client was a construction company. They have different approach, fast, cheap. No, not always cheap. Good money, let's say it this way, and you have to do it in very fast. And they also they have to take into account the whole life cycle from this, because they have to operate this as well. So this was a challenge for us, and we learned a lot from it. And then I hand over to my dear colleague.
Thanks, Gerard. So we hand over to another use case, the handover of construction projects to the operators. Every time really, really difficult situation, because they got not fast enough ready with all that stuff. Especially, usually we have to decide, do we want to have finally finished the building in time, or do we want to have the documentation in time? This is usually my job at the airport, when they got finished the construction, and we in the operation know already, okay, in up to 3 months we need to open the asset. There are the documents, because we have to deliver this to all the departments for the renting areas, for security stuff, for the technicians that they train already how to solve the things, how to operate, how to repair things, and so on and so on. 3 months is not enough time for that. Usually 3 months before opening, you don't get anything. So this is usually a complicated situation, but maybe we start from the beginning. How usually a BIM project is starting? All of you know already the IR, even the architects. Usually there are many ideas from us how to get the stuff, how everything should work, and so on and so on. When we start creating the BIM execution plan, it's getting more compromise about the wishes and the possibilities. But it's all right, because this is something like, this is the honesty actually in the project. We try to have here a wish list, but here we have a compromise of the things which are really able in the project with the guys who are in the project and which are necessary for us. So usually this is more or less from the completely thing we want to have, I think 80%. Then it's good already to have 80% of your requirements really fulfilled actually. And usually planning, tendering, construction and so on is completely done in our scope, usually from one general contractor who is responsible to handle all these things well. When we're starting the construction of the real building on the construction site, something really important happened already, and this is actually done since 4 years. I think in Beijing we already presented how we do this usually in projects. We have here a really, really nice optimized building. We saw it from Christoph actually. Really detailed solutions. Everything has to keep in place, otherwise it's not working, because you have a so high accuracy in the design. When someone on the construction site did it in another way, nothing works anymore, and then you lost everything actually. So for that reason, it's really important during construction to have regular laser scans to several times to get control about the construction site. And this is something that technology is really important, because there are several systems how to make laser scans, but here it's very important to have laser scans. There you can get results really, really fast, because when you have a scan today in the morning, last at least tomorrow in the morning, you have time to react, to have action if there is a problem about. So you need to scan, you need to analyze, and you have more or less 6 hours or so. There you can go to the construction site and can say, stop, this column is wrong, or this air vent is completely wrong position, and so on. Otherwise, they have so much proceeds that it's too late. And then the design needs to have a lot of repairing in the model, or a lot of things to change in the model, that everything else fits together again. So this is already done by now in all regular projects in our airport. All these informations are usually handled by the general contractor for the project. If there is a split between the construction company and the designers, usually we keep all this BIM stuff in the hands of the designers, because this is much more important, because then you have a full responsibility from the beginning of the project up to the end. If you split here and you hand over all the things to the construction company, you have 2 handovers, and this making everything more worse. So the question is, by now we have here BIM models, we have here high dense information, we have laser scans and so on, how this stuff could be transported into the facility management. And actually there's the good message about it is actually there are solutions. The bad message is usually you can't do it in the project as you want. So at the beginning, for sure, we get IFC models. We saw it. Everyone can do it. Mostly everyone already can do it. But what we need as well is a DWG drawing from every story, because actually we need also 2D drawings. In Austria, this is a question of the law. They say we need 2D drawings from every story to operate the building. So we have to get it. And this is actually something we can't transport in an IFC file. But then there's another thing. We need product documentation, because everything which is inbuilt everything which is equipped in the building, for example, these lights, the sprinklers, and so on, you need the product documentation about all these things, because you need to know when do you need to serve these things, how do you inspect these things, how do you maintain these things, and so on and so on and so on. This is a lot of information. To be honest, we have some projects, when we start operation, we need 1.5 years later on to collect the documentation completely, because construction companies here don't have enough people on the construction site to collect the things just in time. This is so much work. I think most people who are not involved in that can't imagine how much work it is to collect the documentation of high-equipped buildings. It's completely out of mind of the most of the people, usually also out of mind of the architects. So,
Thank you.
we share some beer in the evening. But there's also another really important thing. When you have high-equipped buildings, you need also to get control about the equipment, and this can't be done traditionally. So you need also a connection between the model information and between the control. Otherwise, it's too complex, and otherwise the things going not hand in hand. So this is also something you need to get controlled. And this is also possible if you have so much split information. So this is actually the problem. We have too much splitted information here during handover. Problem is actually why we have to do it, because we have no 2D drawings embedded in the IFC file. It's technically possible, but we need to talk about later on about that. Second thing is actually why we need the DWG drawings, not only for the 2D drawings, also actually if we want to rebuild the buildings, usually an IFC file is not enough information for us, because it depends on the software which is creating the IFC file, but actually not every software could produce IFC files which are redrawable later on in another software and so on. So this the technology is called round trip. There are also solutions for IFC, but this is also something we have as a requirement from the airport room. We need to get more support for stuff like this. But later on, more details about that. The next thing is actually, or the next important thing is also, if you have product informations, there is actually not a common way to integrate product information in models or to link these product information in models. Product room is thinking about a lot of things, but actually there is not a harmonized procedure how to work with these product informations regarding to BIM models. It's a good solution to have BIM models and product informations combined, but nobody knows already how to handle this in practice or how to hand over these things. There's already the RTF or RFT container technology and to combine or to transport the combination of linked informations with models and so on in containers. But also this is not really implemented in software at the market, not in Europe, maybe otherwhere. And the hugest problem about the situation is if you have so much separated informations and you need to make sure that everything is conformed together, you need a lot of time to test it. And in this situation, usually the building owners or the operators have a problem because here they got handed over millions and millions of informations. Then they need to check, and this is time consuming. So this means you need to work 3 months or so to check is everything right and fits together. During that time, you need to start operation, and you lost control about your construction company because they have to get paid because they finalized the building. You have some fee left to pay them for the documentation, but this is not much, so they are not so much motivated to support you on that anymore. So this is the problem actually. So we need the biggest point here, how to solve the thing. We need a much more easier handover procedure. And yeah, I have a slide for the solutions. So the point is actually how we can make this. We already had research projects in Austria and have a prototype implementation that we can implement 2D informations in an IFC file. So you have a full connected 2D drawing in an IFC file. This means every line in the IFC file in a 2D drawing is connected to the model anymore. If you imported it again in a software, you can also reproduce the drawings. So this is a key for us to embed 2D informations inside an IFC file. Next point is as well, we need to hand over also editable IFC files because the native files are not useful for us. If I got a native file, maybe when we jump back here to, if I'm getting here a native file from designer for my building, and we have to draw here the morning, this is here, then there's 15 years maybe, we operate the terminal, and then we want to rebuild the terminal. The native file is not working anymore. Maybe a little bit, but not for sure, really completely. So for that file, it's really, really important for us to have also round-trip support. This means the IFC file have maybe a more abstract content about the building, but this content is re-editable for sure, even in 20 and 30 years. This is very, very important for us. This was also the reason why we talked very shortly about LOG specifications. which are abstract enough to make sure that the content is usable also later on, but carry enough information to understand the construction of the building or the equipment. The third point here is we can embed already product data. So especially with the technology we get presented yesterday with the BSDD connections and so on, we can embed more dense information about the products. But also because IFC is getting more and more able to split equipment or to split, for example, walls in different components. The only thing we need here is that we have this kind of substructure and elements also for equipment like doors, for example, because also doors are very complex things in airports because they contain so much subcomponents you need to declare separately that you need technology like this, like the different layers, for example, in walls, also for other components in an IFC file. Technically, it's not a huge problem, but it has to do, or it has to get solved, actually, that we can do this with the standard software at the market. As I mentioned, we already implemented the first 2 points in a research project and finalized this last year. We can share also the recordings about that. And it's not that much effort here to implement these things in IFC. A lot of these things already implemented in IFC. We're actually looking, for example, here only for an entity to declare the layouts and the viewports we want to transport also with the IFC file. Everything else is already solved because there's an IFC annotation entity, and you can declare area 2D content already with that. Also with the round trip stuff, there's already a modifier definition, a design transfer view. It's not finished yet, but it's exactly regarded to that topic. So there are solutions here, even on the horizon. The only thing is actually, in my opinion, that the industry need more to describe the needs we have in behind these topics, because you need that to have a more specific solution about that. And that's the last point here. This is also a reason for the AR2, because we are here to collect exactly these needs, to have more specific solutions which are really helpful in practice. And how this could look like in future shows this picture here. We have only one file, or nearly one file, to exchange the information here. It's much more easier to check, because this could be done actually with Solibri Model Checker or with other tools already to check the content of the file. Is it fulfilled and is it fitting to our LOI specifications and so on. But there's another thing which was mentioned today as well, and this is the OpenCTE connection, because the most important thing actually we identified also for handover procedures is we don't need this file-based handovers anymore. It's much too slow. It's also not only during planning and construction a huge problem if everyone needs to upload manually files and describe the files again and so on. A lot of mistakes happen there all the time. Also, when you combine different platforms, you need an OpenCTE connection, because it's much more safe, it's much more faster, and you don't need to rely on one single person who needs to upload the file and describe everything correctly. Also because OpenCTE supports technologies that not everything needs to transport it again, new and again. You need only to transport here the changes from a new release of the file. So we save also a lot of data volume for transporting things and so on. So for us, this kind of connections here are the future, and we're also waiting for that, not only for getting more functionalities inside IFC directly. So this was some description about other handover use case, I think. We have again a coffee break, but maybe we have a lot of questions before.
No, and I think we're supposed to do a project update in this session too. I was just looking
right.
at, are there any questions about our presentations? Online, maybe.
At the moment, I have nothing online. Let's give them the usual delay time to ask questions, but I don't know, maybe start with the room.
Yeah, I have a small question about your presentation. I was curious about the dictionary. Is it open for everybody or only the stakeholders doing the project?
For now, it is just for the stakeholders, as in, it's single sign-on. We're working on it to just be published for everyone. I do know that our project parties, for example, NACO, but also Heijmans, they make use of the API, so they just get our access to our data model and use it within their daily work. But we are working on making it available for anyone.
And I have another question.
Oh.
That's about it. Yeah, can I go first? Yeah. I also was really curious about versioning. How do you guys do that? Because there's a lot of tooling going around, of course. How do you manage it?
I think Maya, I don't know if Maya is on track. I think she's the best one to answer that question.
I think we can bring her over. Let me try.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
I can hear you.
perfect.
Great, perfect. Hi all. Well, versioning. So there are two different parts to answer that question. First thing is that basically we are publishing our data model in an environment called Moxio. It's a company, and with them have been working with the versions of the different models that we are publishing. So basically everyone has access to all the previous ones and the current one that we are working, plus the future changes that we want to do for the next versions of the data model. And within our team, in the current version that we are working on and making changes, basically that's the biggest issue that we have. We work, each person that makes a change within the data model is the only person who can work on a particular change. And when someone finishes, then the next one takes the model up. We have been searching for a tool for this sort of format files. There is a tool that TNO has created. And we used to have conversations with TNO to actually start using their tool. At some point, we stopped because of the time pressure that we have to just deliver new releases. We didn't search for that more. But this is in our plans for next year. So yeah, versioning, it is an issue for us. We are dealing with it just by discussing with each other who is going to make changes and who is not. And I think it's also a very important one.
Thanks, Maya.
Thank you.
You had a question?
Yeah. Besides using this asset information in the CMMS, Maximo, I think you're using already.
Yes.
Do you envision any other use for this information? Any other software that you're going to connect?
So I mentioned Maximo. There's no one from Schiphol right now. I think our vision is, because we outsourced our maintenance, so it's part of the main contractor right now, we actually want to do all of that kind of work within our central data environment. So Maximo is, for us, not that important anymore. Don't tell anyone I said that out loud. But the platform that we have based on linked data, it should make it pretty easy, accessible to link or store your data, make your data visible in any other application.
Yes.
Yep.
Actually, this kind of concept is common at the airports because in the morning we talk also about integrating new components in existing environments. We try to implement something like middlewares and connect existing softwares to a middleware. And the middleware needs to address all the informations to the different existing applications. Even when you have the problem that, how did you call it? You have the instance level and the crowded, no, how did you call it?
The cluster,
The cluster level, yeah. So you need to structure your models in a way that you can address the components to different existing softwares. This makes it that complicated how to produce asset models. But when you have a solution for that, it's getting extremely powerful because all the existing softwares which are not connected to each other get connected with on the georeference level, and you can use a lot of technologies in the middleware to get information more in context to each other, more than the originally old software is able to do. This is getting really, really interesting for us at the airports because we can collect also more information about the circumstances, how the information is used, again, from the maintenance stuff and so on and so on. So then it's getting really interesting. But it's a lot to do with it.
Yes.
And if you have the lucky situation then in Korea, that they have the possibilities to model the whole assets in one procedure, and they have a completely whole airport completely in a model placed, then it's getting more easier. But by now, at our airport, we have not the resources that we can model everything by now, so we have to do it step by step. We have priorities, terminals, office building, parking houses, then the cargo stuff, and so on. And so it took, I think, 5 years or so to finalize this at our airport. But it's also a question again about how much geometry or how much content you want to have in the model.
We have one question from people online, trying to put it on the screen. What is the current process of transferring the asset information management data from the integrated IFC to any client maintenance software, and how facility operations staff reacted to this new technology?
I think this question here was already discussed today. At the beginning, they are not that amused because it's something new. And everything from the past is better than the new one, and you know. It's a question how much time you took to debate this with them, and how much you try to understand what their needs are. We identify actually that this question here usually is more or less a question of the view or of the UI of the products, how they can use the products in daily work. Especially, usually they have to switch to mobile devices, and if they are workers, mobile devices usually are not the best thing. So you need to improve the interface of your applications, that it's really easy to use. So we identify here that we need to have special apps for every workflow or for every kind of worker in the airport. For example, if there's someone who's only responsible for cleaning, you don't need to have any options how to serve something here. So you need to decrease the possibilities in the interface, and then it's getting easier for them, and then the acceptability increases a lot. Also, that you understand really precisely how the workflow of their work is actually happened, that this is getting supported, and then it's starting getting much more better. So after a year or so, for example, with our construction monitoring systems, with the new ones, we have a really good acceptance, but it was really hard work, and you don't need to stop work when they're sitting in the first meeting about the software set. It's completely bullshit what you have to do. We can't work with that. We want to have the old system back again, and so on. This is usually the first response for the first 3 months or so, and you need to go through that, and then it's getting better. And the connections here, usually we have small, or the interface, or the interconnection between the different softwares usually are developed with web services in our systems. So we have special external developer who develop the connections between the existing solutions and the new solutions. And usually this is done via APIs with web services. And the question here is again, how you synchronize your different components. I think this is the basic question in these huge environments. In the old ERP systems, you usually have daily synchronized stuff during the night or so. And if you work with instance levels software, this is really too slow. So usually you want to have, I think, inside 15 minutes synchronization with solutions like that. So this is usually also, again, hard work for the developers, how to have solutions for these different systems, how they work usually with information inside.
And Schiphol did it like how I presented it. So we have that one source of truth environment, and Maya, correct me if I'm wrong, but we store all of our data in our common environments. That's our one source of truth, and from there it will be distributed to the different systems. So if our Maximo is only interested in certain properties, it will get it from our central data environment, store it in that application. If it's geometry with maybe some properties that are needed within our GIS system, for example, then it will be delivered from our central data environment. So we're not even looking anymore at integrating the different systems. We added a layer based on linked data principles, so the semantics of all of it, and that is being delivered to all of the different systems, making it very easy to add more systems if needed, whether it's within asset management or maybe other business units as well.
It's getting more complicated when you start to implementing the building control, because then you have different endpoints you need to connect. And usually they are not modeled yet, but you need to localize them. This is hard work, but the question in behind is usually if you have, for example, if you want to implement the measurement for all your energy meters, this is really important because otherwise you have no control about the consumption. And this is something you need to get in real time. Otherwise you can't react, or you can't, it's too late to. If you know already, last month we burned twice the energy to this building, and now we notice that it's too late. So you need to have this information very fast. But if you start implementing this, you need a really good structure that you know, for example, there is an energy meter, what's connected to this energy meter. You need an overview about that. And this is already, again, something where linked data is the only possibility actually to have this structure combined with data endpoints in your buildings.
And important to mention, the question was about IFC. Maya is pretty knowledgeable on that part, but we have a linking rule set to IFC. So it's actually part of our model when data is being created and delivered.
So with your central database and the fact that you're using contractors for the majority of your maintenance, are you providing those contractors access to that database through that linking data, or are you hosting that in a separate environment to allow for that public access essentially?
So I hate the word digital twin, even though we're here about BIM, but so our definition of digital twin with our main contractors is that we want a digital copy of what the main contractor has in our system, conform our data model. So when they store their data, conform our data dictionary, we get a digital copy through that interface to our model. So they will never look in our database, but we have to trust our main contractors that we have the exact same data, what is on their end and on our end. And then we use our data for all our users. And then once a project starts, there's still a lot of discussion because right now Schiphol is responsible for delivering the as-is situation for a new project, but there's a lot of discussion now with our main contractors, like, hey, if you guys are already doing the work, just use your own data because that is being circulated in that environment. But we're not there yet.
It's also a matter of responsibility.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the contractors always start with it's not good.
Yeah.
That's the first line they have learned somewhere.
Not reliable, not good. That's story of my life.
Yeah. But usually we had this slide in the morning, I don't know if you joined this session, where we have the picture, everything which is in the project information model could be outsourced and is usually in external applications, but everything which belongs to the AIM is in-house, is usually also on-premise, because it's much too dangerous to have this outsourced. And usually you don't get externals inside this, it's much too dangerous. And we have external applications which connected with web services, and they can use from externals, but they have only 1% of the information from our common system.
Exactly, yeah. No, it's a situation that we're running into here in Canada for our buildings, and trying to manage that aspect of whether it's worthwhile to host a secondary environment with all of this asset data that we receive as essentially a digital copy for them to manage with, and then have a limited connection point between that, so that we're not having to constantly worry about syncing it and all of that, where that's done, and anytime there's a renovation project, that model can then be pulled over to the front to create a PIM for the next, and that kind of situation. So just curious to see how other organizations with similar aspects are doing that.
I noticed also from the hospital projects already. They already want to have, because the airport is a huge asset with a lot of buildings, it's easier to have also an IT department there. In hospitals, you don't have this usually in such an increased way. And we already discussed with them that they have an own smaller server stage also in the building to have one and a first replacement for the digital model or for the middleware to connect the applications in-house. Everything is completely disconnected from the internet, so they provide the devices for the maintenance worker and so on with the internal house Wi-Fi. because they want to have everything offline completely again, because it's too difficult in an hospital to have the IT security for that. So they've very closed, but more in the meaning of security, very close systems in mind, actually, because the internet stuff getting too dangerous, and the having everything on a provider in the country or somewhere else, it's much too dangerous for us. That's the reason.
It's not only for airport, it's not only for hospitals, also for airports, where you get a lot of. I invented it myself. So I don't want to share it with my colleagues around the world. So there is because we are looking for as many airports to join the airport. You quite often hear that I can't share my information because this is information I don't want to share. Either it's commercial viable or it's terroristical environment difficult. So I think that is one of the issues we have to solve. How to get around that problem. Because it's very important to share, but if you can't share, because then they use it for different objectives, then we should be aware how to get that solved.
There's another question in that context as well, that, for example, we have the problem that there are companies who serve, for example, the fire protection system. They don't share everything with us as well. They collect a lot of information we want to have, but we don't get it from them because they know they get replaceable when they share too much with us. So it's another problem in the same context. Yeah?
And in the past, we had the Patriot Act, of course. And it was also a very difficult one. We worked all over the globe, and a number of the countries don't want to have their information directly shared with particular other countries. Let's make it as political as possible. No, but that's also an issue. I think we are at the forefront of a lot of these questions. But again, that's what we ended the last presentation as well. Whatever we need to. It's easy.
I don't think there's time for the other part of the
No,
presentation.
we still have 15 minutes, but
15
I
minutes?
think everyone is keen to go to lunch. But
Yeah. Okay.
One quick question.
Yeah, of course.
About maintaining the information during the operations, is it being held in the common data environment again, the same data environment that you keep on the
Yeah.
time of the project?
So in our common data environment, the people using it cannot make changes to the data. So if they want to make changes, they have to do it through our main contractor again. We are working based on linked data. We can make separate knowledge graphs based on the information needs. For now, our model is primarily based on asset management and on maintenance with our main contractor. So that's what we have covered. Say if operations comes with a different unit of how they want to work and want to add it, then Maya can give you all the details. We can create a separate business unit and create its own knowledge graph. But everything for asset management will go through the main contractor. So that's one of the things within our own organization that my people were not happy with, because they wanted to go in Maximo, in GIS, they wanted to make their own changes, but that caused a lot of discrepancies between the different systems. And that's something that we did not want anymore, because like Christoph said, I deliver information for a new project and then they all complain data is bad, not aligned. They need to do an inventory of the situation. So that's how we have designed it. It's 3 years now. People are slowly accepting it. And we are looking into possibilities of creating a graph within our central data environment where people could potentially add their own changes. But that's separate then from the chain with our main contractors and our data model.
And I think this is the biggest difference between our concepts, because we have everything completely integrated in our airports. So maintenance and so on, all these guys are part of the airport. And we try to edit the models more or less automatically in future. So this is a concept of us that we want to get the new information also as part of the models. Maybe also to make changes automatically for maybe because of you have in the airport a lot of small construction sites where you don't need to change the geometry. It's more a question of the informations. If they replace a light, for example, from a traditional light to an LED light or so, or if the door equipment is exchanged, this is not important to have it in the geometry. It's more important to have it in the alphanumeric information. And we try to look for automatical procedures to get this information in the model, to reduce the work to have this as a manual work, because the problem is actually when you make it manually, you need also to identify manually when it happens. But if you get connected to the real procedures from the other departments, then you really get the message when it's done, and then you can also change the model. This is really important because you have many different tasks in an airport, and they are maybe not really connected to each other. So there are people who clean the stuff, there are people who maintain the stuff, then there are people who change something in the terminal because of new security reasons, and so on and so on. And we want to have all these activities at one certain point. And then it's getting much more easier. Because we discussed a lot how to identify changes in your facilities with technical possibilities, organizational possibilities. It's a combination of all of these things, but it's really hard work actually to get the information once something will get changed in a certain place in data. It sounds stupid, but it's the reality actually. Especially if you have a railway station under your airport. We have this is the same. It's a completely different department or a different world, and then wants to spend all the information to us.
Do you want to take one last question for the gentleman?
I think it was a Mike's presentation. May I know why crash detection you use Solibri, and then for design coordination you use Navisworks?
Yeah, partially the data that was delivered was to the site utilities. And as you know, in Solibri you can import to the information. So in this case we chose, and it was one of the most crucial parts of the project. We chose to have an additional Navisworks to enable people to look also at that aspect.
I see. Is it very common or it's very special?
Well, it is common to have to deal with 2D information, but you always have a choice to translate it into 3D, or to just use the 2D information. In this situation, we thought, okay, this is a very specific thing. We agreed with the client that we load it into Navisworks, we look from above, and if we see an interface with, I don't know, some staircase going up, it's always a clash. So it's kind of a manual check.
But still, for the crash detection, you use Solibri.
Yes, for the rest is
Thank you.
Okay, nice. So wrapping up, let me thank you all the online attendees, Maya joining online, all the presenters in the room, and the people in the room. As a final reminder, if you're interested to get in touch with the airport room, even if you're an architect, right? You can go over the airport, the buildingSMART forums and get in touch with these guys, or via email, I guess, right? Yep. And I wish everyone a nice lunch, and I hope to see you in one of the next sessions of the summit. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.